My name is Maya Thompson. I'm 31 years old, and I've lived in Savannah, Georgia my whole life. It's a city where the streets stay shaded by moss-draped oaks, where neighbors still wave when they pass, and where I thought I knew the rhythm of my days by heart. I had a life, not perfect, but steady. A little two-bedroom townhouse just off Victory Drive, with creaky stairs and a kitchen window that faced the morning sun. My day started with the smell of fresh coffee and the sound of his footsteps coming down those stairs. He'd kiss my cheek, mumble something about traffic, and head out the door. We've been together for almost 5 years. 5 years of birthdays, bills, grocery lists scribbled on sticky notes. We had a drawer filled with movie ticket stubs and a shared photo album on our phones labeled Us. There were times I'd scroll through those pictures late at night, vacations, dinners with friends, lazy Sundays, and feel certain that no one could fake that kind of love. I was wrong, because love, or what I thought was love, can be the most convincing disguise. And the moment I found out wasn't a fight or an argument or a gradual falling apart, it was a single phone call. A Tuesday afternoon. The sunlight was slanting through the blinds in long, thin lines across the living room carpet. I had just set down a basket of laundry when my phone buzzed on the coffee table. It wasn't his name on the screen, but it was a number I recognized. I remember pausing, just a heartbeat, before answering, and I remember the voice on the other end, flat, measured, like the caller had practiced exactly what they were going to say. The words didn't hit all at once. They came slowly, like water slipping through cracks, filling up the space around me until I realized I couldn't move. I was standing in the middle of my living room, but I might as well have been on a different planet. The sound in my ears changed. The phone felt heavy in my hand, and somewhere inside me, a part of myself, the part that still believed in us, snapped in half. You don't think about the mundane details when your world changes, but I remember mine. I remember the faint hum of the refrigerator, the smell of laundry detergent still clinging to my hands, and I remember my own voice, asking questions I didn't want the answers to. By the time I hung up, my hands were shaking. I sat down on the edge of the couch and stared at the wall, my mind replaying every moment we'd shared, every smile, every late-night conversation, and wondering which parts were real, which ones were just performed. I want to be clear, this isn't just a story about me. This isn't just a woman getting her heart broken. It's a story about deception so thorough, so carefully woven into the fabric of everyday life, that you can be living inside it and not even see it until someone hands you the thread that unravels everything. It happens every day. Right now, while you're listening to me, someone else's phone is ringing. Someone else is about to hear the words that will split their life into before and after. That's why I'm telling this on Unfaithful Chronicles. Because maybe you've ignored a gut feeling. Maybe you've explained away the late nights, the unanswered messages, the moments that didn't add up. I did too. But there's a difference between suspicion and proof. And proof? It doesn't just change what you think of someone. It changes who you are. So, if you're here, stay with me until the end, because what happened next is something you'll want to remember. 2 weeks earlier. 2 weeks earlier, my life felt full. I'm 29 years old, and at the time I'd been with my boyfriend Ethan for just over 4 years. 4 years that, at least from the outside, looked like the picture of a steady, happy relationship. We met in the most ordinary way, at a mutual friend's barbecue. He was flipping burgers on the grill, wearing this faded navy t-shirt and laughing at his own jokes. He had this way of leaning in when you spoke, like he wanted to catch every single word. That night he asked for my number. By the next weekend, we were inseparable. Our life together had a rhythm. Weeknights, we'd cook dinner side by side in our little kitchen. He'd chop onions while I stirred something on the stove, music playing low in the background. There was always playful teasing, him claiming his pasta sauce was better than mine, me insisting he was too heavy-handed with the salt. Weekends were for trips, not big, extravagant getaways, just small escapes. A cabin in the mountains, a last-minute drive to Charleston to walk along the waterfront. Sometimes we'd get a cheap motel by the beach, buy takeout, and watch the waves from the balcony until the air turned cold. Those were the moments that felt solid, the kind of memories you build a future on. Our friends used to say we were that couple, the one that made other people believe in relationships again. We didn't fight often, and when we did, it was about silly things: where to order dinner from, whose turn it was to take out the trash. The real, hard problems, they never seemed to find us. At least, that's what I thought. Looking back, I can see it, the small shifts. They weren't loud enough to demand my attention, not at first. Just little changes in how he moved through our days. Ethan started working late more often. At first, it was once every couple of weeks. Then it was twice. Then, almost every night. He'd come home with the smell of someone else's perfume clinging faintly to his jacket, though at the time I convinced myself it was from an elevator or a coworker's hug goodbye. He guarded his phone more than he used to. There was a time when it would sit face up on the counter while we cooked or watched TV, but suddenly it was always in his pocket or flipped face down. When it buzzed, he'd glance at it quickly, then put it away without saying a word. I told myself it was nothing. After all, we trusted each other. That was the foundation of our relationship. And if I started questioning that, what would be left? So I didn't ask. I didn't pry. Instead, I reminded myself of the things that felt real. The way he'd still reach for my hand when we crossed the street, or how he'd text me in the middle of the day just to say he missed me. And I clung to those small reassurances like they could cancel out the unease creeping in around the edges. But here's the thing about cracks. Until the day something forces them wide open, and you realize the foundation you were standing on was already broken. It started small, a flicker in my peripheral vision that I tried not to focus on, but once you notice something, really notice it, it's almost impossible to unsee. Ethan had always been comfortable with his phone. He'd scroll next to me on the couch, show me memes, let me answer a call if his hands were full, but lately, that changed. I'd catch him texting late at night, the soft blue glow lighting his face while he angled the screen just slightly away from me. If I shifted in bed, he'd tilt it further. Sometimes he'd slip the phone under his pillow like a teenager hiding something from his parents. I told myself it was nothing, maybe work messages, maybe some project that required late-night communication, but the part of me that believed that was shrinking by the day. Then, one night over drinks, a friend said something that lodged in my mind like a splinter. We were sitting at a small table near the window, the sound of glasses clinking and conversation buzzing around us, when she leaned forward and asked, "Are you sure he's just at work so late?" She said it with a half smile, like she was joking, but there was weight behind her eyes. I laughed it off. Of course I'm sure. But the truth was, I wasn't. After that, little things started to feel heavier. If Ethan's phone buzzed during dinner, he'd glance at it with a flash of something, not guilt exactly, but something, before setting it down, screen down, and changing the subject. If I asked about his day, he'd be vague, just busy, same old. And then came the night I couldn't explain away. It was 1 a.m. I'd been half asleep, wrapped in the soft hum of the ceiling fan, when I woke to the faint sound of laughter. Not the kind of laugh you make at a late-night TV show. This was softer, lower, the kind you save for someone you're close to, someone you want to impress. I got out of bed and followed the sound down the hallway. The light in the living room was off, but the glow of his phone screen lit up his face. He was leaning back in the armchair, phone pressed to his ear, smiling in a way I hadn't seen in months. I stood there for a moment, unnoticed, my heart thudding in my chest. I didn't say anything. I didn't want to hear the lie he'd tell me. Instead, I turned and went back to bed, sliding under the covers like nothing had happened. But my mind wouldn't stop. Every possibility, every scenario, flashed behind my eyes, and each one felt worse than the last. And that's when the real war started. Part of me wanted to rip the truth out into the open, no matter how much it hurt. The other part was terrified of what I might find.
Because once you know, you can't go back. And I wasn't sure I was ready.
It was a Thursday evening, quiet, uneventful. Ethan had said he'd be late again, something about finishing a report before a deadline. I was sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of tea, scrolling aimlessly through my phone, the TV murmuring in the background. That's when it happened. The screen lit up with a number I didn't recognize. Not a telemarketer, local area code. I hesitated. For some reason, my thumb hovered over the screen longer than it should have, like my body knew something my mind wasn't ready for. I answered. There was a pause, then a voice, soft, female, and shaking slightly. Is this Maya? The way she said my name made my stomach tighten. Yes, who's this? Another pause. I'm sorry to call you like this. I need to talk to you. It's about Ethan. The room felt smaller. My hand gripped the edge of the table without me realizing it. What about him? Her words came out slow, careful, like each one weighed too much to carry all at once. I didn't know about you until yesterday, but I think we've both been seeing the same man. For a moment, I couldn't hear the TV anymore. I couldn't hear anything except the sound of my own breathing, sharp and uneven. It was as if every quiet suspicion, every late night, every guarded glance had been waiting for this moment, and now it was here, staring me in the face. I didn't respond right away. I think part of me was hoping she'd backpedal, say it was a mistake, wrong number, wrong person. But instead, she kept going. She started telling me things, details so precise I felt sick. The restaurant where he took her on their first date, the same one he took me to for my birthday. The little cabin in the mountains where they'd spent a weekend, the one he'd told me was a solo hiking trip. Even the gifts, the silver bracelet he gave me for our anniversary, she had the same one, same design, same engraving inside. It was like she had reached into my life and pulled out pieces of it, laying them down in front of me with proof I couldn't deny. Finally, I managed to speak. Why are you telling me this? The line went quiet for a moment. Then she said it, her voice trembling so much I could hear her catching her breath between words. Because I just found out I'm pregnant, and he's the father. Those words landed like a blow I didn't see coming. I felt the tea in my stomach turn to ice. Everything else faded, the walls, the hum of the refrigerator, even the woman's voice. There was only the ringing in my ears, and the sudden, undeniable truth. The man I don't even remember hanging up the phone. 1 second, her voice was still in my ear, shaking as she told me her news. And the next, I was just sitting there at the kitchen table, staring at the wall. The mug of tea had gone cold. My hands were wrapped so tightly around my phone that my knuckles had turned white. Shock is a strange thing. You think you'll cry or yell or fall apart, but instead, I just sat there, still, silent. The minutes blurred into hours, the daylight fading until the kitchen was nothing but shadows. I didn't call anyone. I didn't leave. I just waited. Around 10 p.m., I heard his car in the driveway. The front door opened, the sound of his keys hitting the little dish by the door like always. I forced myself to look normal. I didn't want him to see what was coming. Not yet. He walked into the kitchen, smiling faintly. "Hey, you're still up?" "Yeah," I said, my voice even. He poured himself a glass of water, completely at ease, completely unaware that the ground beneath him was already giving way. I asked casually, "How was work?" He took a sip. "Busy as always?" I watched him for a moment, the way he didn't flinch, the way the lie came so easily. Then I said it, calm, almost quiet. "That's strange, because I got a call today." His eyes flicked up to mine. At first, there was just confusion, a small crease between his brows. But as I held his gaze, the confusion shifted into something sharper. Recognition. Then, panic. He set the glass down slowly. "What kind of call?" I leaned forward, my hands resting on the table. "You know exactly what kind of call." For a moment, he said nothing. Then came the denial. Fast, defensive. "She's lying. Whoever called you, they're making it up. I don't know why, but they are." I just kept looking at him. I think that's what cracked him. The silence. His voice faltered. His eyes dropped to the table. And then, the admission. Not clean, not full, just pieces of the truth, tossed out between excuses. "It wasn't serious. I didn't think it would get this far. I didn't mean for it to hurt you." I felt my chest tighten. It wasn't just what he was saying. It was the way he said it, like he was trying to frame this as a mistake, an accident, as if the lies, the nights away, the gifts meant for two different women were all just slips. The sadness came first, heavy. I didn't shout, I didn't throw anything. When he finally stopped talking, I just stood up, walked past him, and went into the bedroom. The closet light clicked on. I pulled a small suitcase from the back, the same one we used for weekend trips, the one still smelling faintly of the cedar lining. I opened drawers, pulled clothes without thinking about which ones, folded some, stuffed others. The sound of hangers scraping the rod felt unnaturally loud in the stillness. Behind me, I could hear him moving from the kitchen to the bedroom doorway. "Maya, wait, please." I didn't answer. I kept packing. Jeans, shirts, my favorite sweater, toiletries from the bathroom. He stepped closer. "It was a mistake, I swear. I didn't think it would get that far. I don't want to lose you over this." The part of me that used to melt when he said, "I don't want to lose you," was gone, replaced by a clarity I hadn't felt in months. I zipped the bag. The sound cut through his words like a closing door. I turned to face him, my voice steady. "I can't be with someone who lied on this level, not just about who you are, but about who we were. You didn't just cheat on me, Ethan. You built a whole second life while I was here believing in the first one." His eyes searched mine like he was trying to find a way back in. "I can fix this," he said. "We can fix this." But I already knew there was nothing left to fix. I slung the bag over my shoulder, walked past him, and down the stairs. I could feel his eyes on me the whole way, but he didn't follow. Outside, the air was cool. I called a cab. The driver didn't ask questions. I slid into the back seat, set my bag on the floor, and finally let the tears come. They were hot, quick, and silent, the kind that leave you exhausted but somehow lighter. I looked out the window as the cab pulled away from the townhouse, watching the lights blur into streaks against the night. Somewhere behind me, Ethan's phone was probably ringing, maybe even mine too, but I didn't check, because sometimes silence is the loudest thing you can say. And in that silence, I wasn't just leaving him, I was reclaiming myself. I remember sitting there after the door closed behind me, the sound of it still echoing in my ears like a final, sharp note in a song I didn't want to hear. My suitcase sat at my feet in the back of the cab, half zipped because I couldn't bring myself to care if everything was perfectly packed. The city lights blurred in the window, their colors bleeding together through the sheen of my tears. I didn't pick up his calls, not once. My phone lit up over and over again, his name flashing like a cruel reminder of everything I had just walked away from. Each time it rang, I felt a pull, that dangerous temptation to give him just one more chance to explain, to somehow undo the wreckage. But deep down, I knew that was a door I could never open again. Because once trust shatters, it doesn't just break into pieces. It turns into dust. You can try to sweep it up, but it'll keep slipping through your fingers, no matter how tight you hold on. When I finally got home, I sat on my couch and just breathed. It was strange how heavy silence could feel. The absence of his voice, his footsteps, his laugh. The quiet pressed in from all sides, but instead of suffocating me, it reminded me I was still here, still whole, even if it didn't feel like it yet. Looking back now, I realized that moment wasn't about losing him. It was about finding myself again. That call I made, the one that exposed the truth, hurt more than anything I had ever done in my life, but it also saved me. If you ever find yourself with that gnawing feeling deep in your gut, the one that whispers something's wrong, listen to it. Trust yourself, even if it means your world will never look the same again. Because it's better to face a painful truth than to live inside a beautiful lie. I stepped out of the cab that night onto a quiet city street. My suitcase rolled behind me, the wheels clicking softly against the uneven pavement. The air was cool, almost too cold for the light jacket I wore, but it woke me up, made me feel alive. I walked without looking back, my shadow stretching out in front of me under the glow of the streetlights. Some truths will break you. They'll take apart everything you thought you knew, every plan you thought you had. But sometimes you have to break so you can finally heal. And that's exactly what I intended to do.